This is just getting old, and it's getting more and more dangerous by the day, and that's letting Trump have this fantasy of saying that he still won the election somehow. The first example here is a story I talked about yesterday, the 2 Republican election canvassing board members in Wayne County, Michigan, and they're now trying to take back their votes to approve the certification. So initially they voted no, then yes, and now they're trying to say no again. They got a call from Trump on Tuesday night after the meeting, thanking them for their support, and lo and behold, on Wednesday, they suddenly wanted to take back their approval. Their reasoning? They were bullied. I'm not joking. Quote, after the vote, the public comment period began and dozens of people made personal remarks against me and Mr. Hartman. The comments made accusations of racism and threatened me and members of my family. The public comment continued for over 2 hours, and I felt pressured to continue the meeting without a break. End quote. Boo frickin' who? Isn't it kind of weird that the people who love to say F your feelings and call liberals snowflakes are actually the most fragile people? It's ridiculous to think that these people are the tough ones. They always act like they're the victims. I haven't mentioned these people's names yet, so here they are. Monica Palmer and William Hartman, who goes by Bill. You can find them on Twitter as @MonicaS.Palmer and @HartmanDude, and Hartman has 2 N's. Do with that information what you will, but no threats of violence, etc. In Arizona, Mojave County Supervisor Ron Gould said, quote, there are lawsuits all over the place on everything, and that's part of the reason why I'm in no big hurry to canvass the election. End quote. Even though there are no credible claims of voter fraud there or anywhere else in the United States, remember his name. In Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, Republican Joyce Dombrowski-Gebhardt said she won't certify the results in her county without an audit of at least 10% of the votes to make sure that some people didn't vote twice. Give me a break. For people who hate wasting taxpayer money, these people sure love to waste taxpayer money on frivolous lawsuits and recounts and everything. Remember her name. Now you might be saying, well, these are just a few rural people whose counties aren't going to matter, besides Palmer and Hartman who are responsible for Detroit. So why do they matter? This is why. In Arizona, Secretary of State Katie Hobbs sent out a statement on the threats made against her and her family, saying, quote, the truth is, I was prepared for these threats of violence and vitriol. These actions are utterly abhorrent, especially when directed at my family and my staff. But there are those, including the President, members of Congress, and other elected officials, who are perpetuating misinformation and are discouraging others to distrust the election results in a manner that violates the oath of office they took. In Georgia, the Secretary of State's wife got the following text messages this week. Quote, you better not botch this recount. Your life depends on it. And, your husband deserves to face a firing squad. And, the Raffenspergers should be put on trial for treason and face execution. Those were 3 separate messages, by the way. At Dominion Voting Systems, who is the voting machine company that Trump has been attacking on Twitter for 2 weeks now, said their employees have been the subject of threats and online harassment. A Dominion spokesperson said, quote, we've been working around the clock to address issues with law enforcement and take every appropriate measure we can to ensure the safety of employees. End quote. This doesn't happen in a world-leading country. It just doesn't. Republicans in Congress, Mitch McConnell most of all, need to grow up and tell Trump it's over. Take this one step further. Imagine if a woman was still refusing to admit defeat over 2 weeks later. Do you think these white men would have refused to congratulate the winner because the president needs time to cope with this? Of course not. They would have been demanding a concession the minute it was called. By the way, I've been forgetting to mention our friend Emily Murphy, the GSA admin who won't sign the transition papers. There was reporting last night that she was on the verge of a breakdown. So, Murphy Breakdown was trending on Twitter, which was kind of amazing. She's having a breakdown, allegedly, because she won't do her job. She'll get no sympathy from me for that. That's like saying, all right, since you guys want me to burn down my house, I guess I'll do it. And everyone else being like, literally no one asked you to do that. So she's like, well, since you insist, here I go. To beat this metaphor to death, it's like she started a fire and is having a breakdown because she refuses to put it out. Just sign the papers and move on. Nobody would have known who you were if you signed in the first place. Emily Murphy, Monica Palmer, Bill Hartman, Ron Gould, Joyce Dombrowski-Gebhardt. Remember their names and the violence and threats they are inspiring. This is not American. It's not who we are. And I'm hoping that there's legal consequences in their futures, because holding up this transition and the next presidency will get people killed. It will. It just will.